Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here is your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Wilson. I'm the founder and host of People in Fundraising Professional Conversations webcast, and today is Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. Today, I am honored and really excited to welcome Amy Lampi of BWF to our program. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Tim. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. It's so nice to connect with you. Sarah McMullen, a mutual friend, connected us, and I really appreciate you having the time in your schedule, as we'll get into very quickly, to talk with me and to talk with our audience. You are the co-author of the book right over my shoulder, BeneFactors: Why Some Fundraising Professionals Always Succeed. And that is co-authored with Josh Birkholz of BWF as well. So Amy works with Josh and a team of fundraising professionals across the country at BWF. You're currently the Associate Vice President on the Philanthropic Services team. Is that right?
That's correct.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And Amy, I'd love to just turn the time over to you and tell us what you would like to share about the process of writing the book, when it's going live, other events that you and Josh are undertaking to promote BeneFactors, and what inspired you both to go with this project.
Sure. Thank you, Tim. I'm so glad that you mentioned our previous connections, because as you know, in development, we're all about the connecting business. And I'm just so grateful that we have a friend and Sarah, who is actually her sister, Sam, has been a lifelong friend of mine down here in Houston. So a childhood friend. So it's lovely to see how your personal connections turn into professional connections sometimes. So
yes,
so grateful for that. Well, just a little background in history, and I think it precedes the writing of BeneFactors, as I was actually a client of BWF at two previous organizations. I was at Memorial Hermann Foundation, where I was the Senior Director of Advancement Services, overseeing advancement services for that hospital foundation. And that's when I first met Josh and learned about BWF. And actually, I fell quickly in love with predictive fundraising models. And it became analytics started becoming a driving passion of mine, because it really was that marriage of science, and informing the art of fundraising. And so I've always been a data-driven fundraiser from the time I started in fundraising at TheaterWorks in Palo Alto.
Okay.
Some of that story in the book, and how I, as we all do, fell into fundraising over 20 years ago. And with that, that first week, I went to Razor's Edge camp. I call it Razor's, where I learned Razor's Edge database and system. And I was doing gift processing. I was a development associate. So I have my whole career, data has been like that boomerang that I have thrown, and then it just comes back to me. And so I have, I'm one of those, they call me a utility player, where I've not only been a frontline fundraiser and I've managed a fundraising team, but I have that ability to translate data into sort of understandable terms for major gift officers. I've managed major gift teams. I've managed advancement services teams. And so just being able to be that translator has made me, and the application, providing that application of these predictive fundraising models. And so after I worked with Josh and BWF on the implementation of predictive fundraising models at Memorial Hermann Foundation back in the day. I moved back into the arts, which is a passion of mine, and I brought fundraising analytics to that arts and culture space. And so we were working, I was at a Tessitura conference, and I literally emailed Josh and I just said, you know what? These guys need fundraising analytics. Can we work on a pilot project? I was at the Alley Theater. Can we work on a pilot project introducing fundraising analytics to this space? And then lo and behold, years later, through that, our project with Tessitura was featured on the front cover of the Chronicle of Philanthropy in 2016. Nice. And then we've had over 20 plus arts and culture clients adopting fundraising analytics for ways of efficiently handling prospects. So through that client relationship, I was encouraged to join the firm and come on the other side of fundraising and supporting multiple nonprofits with not only data-driven fundraising, but best practices, next practices in our field. And so when Josh and I were first talking about the book, and I brought up the idea of you need another book. There needs to be another book out there by Josh Birkholz. He turned to me and said, well, why don't you write it with me? And I looked at him a bit dumbfounded and said, what do you mean? I've never written a book. How am I going to do that? But I did. He said, all you have to do, just sit down and write. And so through that, it was really a wonderful experience. So I was working for Theater of the Stars here in Houston at the time as a client, and before moving to BWF. But just prior to that time, we sat down separately and wrote our chapters of the book and started talking about, I was director of development or CDO of that institution. And I sat down with Josh and I said, people still don't understand what we do. They still don't understand what fundraising is and what all is involved. And I feel like that's what our book should be about, is educating the board member, the CEO, emerging professionals. Like what are all the aspects that we have to know and understand as fundraising professionals? And so that truly was the seed of this book. And that's where we came up with these 8 factors that we felt would be important to highlight. Really, a lot of it, I look at it as a primer of the soft skills that nobody really tells you. You need to know in our field. And so being able to have something down in writing that really walks people through the process and is there to affirm them that you're you're on the right path, you're doing the right things. As a byproduct, we just hope it's inspirational to sort of those that have been in our field, to encourage them to journey on and pursue on. And then also just for the emerging professional, what is this business? Since we've practically all fallen into it, what is this? What else, it doesn't entail. So that's our hope for the book. And that was really our first goal in writing the book together.
Oh, dynamite. That's a great preview of the book. You mentioned you wanted to serve as a primer for professionals at all levels. Amy, is there, just in terms of a preview, is there one particular chapter or the characteristic, you mentioned 8, that you really gravitated to in the writing exercise of the book and sussing out the details and getting input?
I think in looking at my copy of the book, when I thank you for
right here.
Great part of your backdrop. I love it. Well, our first chapter is data-driven fundraising. It's a data-driven factor, and we really start out the chapter talking about, every book that we would write would start with data, just because it's a lifelong love, I think, of both of ours. And so we talk about what does that mean, because we are in this data age. And I now have the privilege of been teaching about fundraising, lecturing about fundraising analytics at Rice University for several years now, alongside Josh and our colleague Alex. And I think there's so many aspects around how you can use data to harness your fundraising operation in concert with your prospect development professionals and team members, that you can work in tandem to raise more money. And so we talk a lot about data and analytics and trying to charge forward in that space, and continue to charge forward in that space, and how important it is that your system is I call it, I said it to staff members and then also clients, the whole of your ship. So charting the territory, but your system is the whole. And if you have holes that you are all trying to plug with your fingers, and water's coming in, you have to figure out which plug what hole are you going to plug first? Have a strategic. We all have strategic fundraising plans, annual giving plans, major gift plans, foundation plans. Where's our strategic data plan? So
that's a great point.
Being able to have, where do you want to head with your data? Where are you leading the organization with your data? And then charting a territory to get there, because so that it can be the basis of everything that you do and inform. And one of my favorite quotes is actually from Josh himself on this topic, where he has said before that fundraising analytics it's a key aspect of fundraising, because fundraising will always be sitting in someone's living room asking them for money, but analytics and the use of data tells you which living rooms to visit.
That's great. Yeah.
I think the data-driven fundraiser for today is worth highlighting, just for that commitment to utilizing data in this new data age and informing your best and next practices with your fundraising team.
I love those visual analogies, both the hull of the ship and which living room you should be in as the fundraiser. Those are great.
Absolutely. I would often tell team members and other colleagues, we want to make sure that that our time is being well utilized. That's why I was so passionate about introducing this aspect into the arts, because the arts is just incredibly lean when it comes to fundraising operations. And so we needed some efficiency models within our development teams, because we want to know that the time that we're utilizing, are we going to get 80 to 90% return on that ask sitting in that living room? And that's what analytics has been a part of our everyday in corporate America. And so it's time that we utilize it in our fundraising shops.
Yeah, that's a great point. Amy, I'm curious about a couple of things related to the book. One is, you mentioned you and Josh were having dinner, and that's when the book idea seed started. How long has BeneFactors as a publication been in the works?
It's a great question. We started it prior to the pandemic. We started talking about it prior to the pandemic. And then of course the pandemic hit. And so there was a little bit of halting through that. But through the pandemic, we really, we took the chapters that we had written and really got them ready for publication. So we did a lot of internal review, and editing, and then really looked at different paths of what publishing path did we want to take. And then we just had the grateful opportunity of Wiley reaching out and asking if this would be an opportunity. And so they were so grateful they carried the water on this publication and have been an incredible partner in the process since January of this year. And so
awesome.
Going through it's fast tracked in 2022, but it was started as an idea, and then through the pandemic, we took some time to really thoughtfully write, but then also revise, because our business changed drastically. We had to completely overhaul the digital fundraising chapter. But I must say, the parts of the book that we wrote pre-pandemic, it was amazing to read back over them after we've gone through that disruptor to see how relevant they still were. And it gave me reassurance that maybe we were being visionary at the time.
Sure, yes.
Because it wound up, we always had a digital fundraising chapter prior to the pandemic, but then it really, that quickening of digital fundraising has just been a remarkable shift in our sector. Yeah.
And it validates the vision, that the seeds of the idea that you and Josh had. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. And then now we're getting that future future and current validation of people reading the book saying this resonates. This is inspiring. We're very excited. It's if you've never written a book, it's a little bit like having a child. You release it into the world, and you just hope people like it. It can be a little unnerving for a first author experience, because you're worried that, are people going to like it? What do they think?
Yeah.
So far we've been very encouraged and pleased about just our friends and colleagues and strangers just rallying around us for this publication.
I am so glad to hear that. I'm happy for you and Josh. And in fact, Amy, when I wrote up the questions to send to you ahead of time, I went on Amazon to purchase the book, and this was only like 8 days ago. There was one copy left, and I got really into the weeds of drafting these questions. And so then when I went back on Amazon, like a day or two later, there were more copies, and I got mine the very next day. So talk with us, if you can, a little bit about the official launch of the book and other events. I'm very grateful to have you on the program today. Other events you're doing, either you individually or Josh individually, together to get the word out about BeneFactors.
Oh, thank you. Well, this week is an exciting one in particular, because we have our official book launch event hosted by Rice University. And so we're thrilled about that. That's taking place at 8:30 a.m. Central this Friday. And the exciting thing is we actually have it's a free event. It's a free open Rice event, also hosted by the United Way of Greater Houston. And the wonderful thing is you can join us no matter where. You can join us online and virtually, no matter where you are in the world. And then we will also have on-site book signing opportunities and books for purchase there, along with some breakfast bites. And then immediately following that launch, we're going to be speaking about the book at a session at AFP Lead, where nearly 500 fundraising leaders and emerging professionals will be here in Houston for AFP Lead, and we'll have a book signing there as well. And just so grateful for our friends at Houston Grand Opera that are also hosting an event. So we have a couple of event opportunities that have happened this week, and we're trying to maximize. But I know we have other opportunities through APRA chapters, AFP chapters, a slate of speaking engagements that we're really hoping to magnify with the book, and a podcast. Just it's a whole other world. The the publication world and marketing a book is, it's similar to an ask of, asking someone for a philanthropic investment, but it's just
Sure.
it's so different. You may have, like we talk about, those 7 to 10 touches, awareness touches that encourage someone to actually do a thing, make a purchase. But it's there's a whole other, I don't envy being a publicist. I'm trying to learn slowly, but it's we're just so grateful for the current opportunities that have come our way, and I'm looking forward to seeking out other speaking engagements where we can speak about the book for relevant teams or chapters.
Wonderful. That just sounds a rich and enlivening experience. For you, a first-time author, to have this book be received before launch the way it has been in the speaking engagements at Rice University and AFP Lead and others to come, like that's terrific. I'm happy for you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I'm just curious, we have about 15 minutes max. I want to be respectful of your time. You've got a hard stop. Two questions. So Amy, as someone, you've mentioned you've worked at arts institutions in the past. You have a Victor Hugo quote on your BWF bio on the website. And before we started recording, you talked about a background in theater and cultural activities. So, and I may be extrapolating here, but with an arts background and a real passion for the creative side of life, how is it to mirror that with the data-driven focus of, in particular, this book, but the work you do at BWF as well?
Well, I think there's, like we talk about the science and the art of fundraising. And one thing, my educational background is as an actor. I got an acting degree at Ithaca College, and I have utilized that degree as a fundraiser. In so many ways. And there's, I think there's so many, you run into, there's a network of us fundraisers that are performers, musicians, actors, previously have former life of that. And there's a richness, there's a creativity, there's ability to speak in front of others, that we have a better resiliency with a feel of failure. I mean, there's nothing like being able to be in an audition, to actually have an audition and completely judge the first 30 seconds you're in the door. So there's so many applications to having worked in the theater, that grit, that perseverance. But I also think that you, just from the data perspective, that's just me personally.
Oh, okay.
That I've loved math. I've placed out of it in college. It's something that just I gravitate towards. My children are they love math. My daughter, actually, she told me the other day, she's 9, and Emily, and she said, "Mom, my favorite subjects are math and art." Like,
neat.
Loves painting. And so that just warmed my heart, because that is such a diverse interest that she wants to pursue math, or we think she's going to be like a engineer someday.
Oh, cool.
Because she just has that mindset of wanting to know how things work. But then there's that my husband and I are just avid theater fans. Go to New York once or twice a year to catch Broadway shows. We have Broadway subscriptions, theater subscriptions. I'm going to a show tonight. My old stomping grounds. But so it's part of the fabric of what my family does. And so we do data by day, and theater is weaved all through our personal lives, with our children seeing shows, musicals with us. They've seen, probably upwards to 15 different shows with us, and they're 7 and 9, and we can't wait to take them to more. And it really becomes our family pastime.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love hearing that. And Amy, that's a great segue to my next question. And I'm going to have to read it off my little prompt here, but it's a quote from Arthur Brooks, who is a professor at Harvard Business School and Harvard Kennedy School, writes in the Atlantic every Thursday. And I know this is a question you were hoping to address today too. And so to quote Arthur Brooks, he says that the happiest people, according to the best studies, have a balanced portfolio in their life between 4 things: the transcendental, which is to say the spiritual things bigger than you; your family, second; your community, which is your service and friendships; and fourth is earning success through meaningful work that creates value. So faith, family, community, and work. And I really liked you mentioning your children now and instilling cultural passion in them. How do you hear that quote from Arthur, and what speaks to you most about those 4 characteristics?
Well, I guess as like an authentic fundraiser, it all blends for me together. My family is a part of my daughter's attending my book signing on Friday. She's going to go late to school because she's so excited. We had parent-teacher conferences, and the teachers were saying, "Your daughters are so proud of you about your book." They want to sign the books as well. My daughter was asking me to read her chapters at night, and my 9-year-old, and so I did. I read some of the chapters of this book.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
and then the next morning, as we're trying to go to school, she's reading the book, and she was reading parts of Josh's aspects of it. And
Oh, my.
she said, "Well, there's a lot about Harry Potter in here." And then she said, "Mom, basically this book is about your children with some business stuff."
Oh, my.
That was her assessment. But all to say that, my children and my family, they are all part and parcel of what I do. So when I worked in the theater, they would come with me to the theater, to events. They would come with me to work. My community it's a very intentional thing for me to develop relationship capital and community around my family, whether it's through school or through church or, other aspects through the theater. But to me, all those things just create life, and give life. And I wouldn't be who I am today without my faith. And it's just something very important for me and my family. And I think, honestly, it has a lot to also do with philanthropy in general. The word philanthropy is the love of humanity. And so how are we as development professionals loving each other? How are we connecting donors with their passion? That's what I tell people. I don't raise money. I connect people with their passion. And that's the love of humanity. And so the reason I have that Victor Hugo quote on my my staff page on the site is because he talks about to love another person is to see the face of God. And I just feel like there is that transcendental piece of community and humanity. And I feel we as development professionals are here for a higher calling. This is what we do. It is our job to advance the missions of our organizations, to be those people that are representing and being the face of the institution. That is a high calling. And so I see that as what I've been, created to do, what I've been meant to do. And so that's why I'm so passionate about philanthropy. And I'm not sure I could see myself doing anything else because there is such I have an incredible community of friends. Some of my closest friends are development colleagues through AFP, just through my journeys and careers, mentors, people I've been able to mentor. We are in a beautiful community. And if we embrace that community, but also provide and that balance and give ourselves those boundaries of time to hold each of those aspects precious, it does create that balance and wholeness as a person.
That is beautifully said. And I love how you were able to touch on all 4 of those characteristics from the quote, and just very meaningful. So thank you for sharing that, Amy. We have 5 minutes. I know you have a hard stop. You talked a moment ago about relationship capital and mentoring. And I sent you a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson as part of the questionnaire. And he wrote at some point that he awoke this morning with devote Thanksgiving for my friends, the old and the new. And for you as a connector, and then the passion you derive from relationships in all of your communities, what about those connections is most meaningful and brings gratitude to your life?
I think it's the lifting up of each other. I was real thoughtful when we were putting together the acknowledgments for this book. There are individuals that allowed me to use their words to be able to make a point. Voulet was so gracious to allow me to use some of his previous blog text. My colleague Greg Robertson at Houston Grand Opera allowed me to use parts of her presentation. I learned so much from others, and I'm so grateful because others add to my life as I hope to add to theirs. And I just feel that within that, as a business, collaborative fundraising is not only essential, it's our future.
Yeah.
I was talking to a foundation board not too long ago, and they all of our funders are wondering, are we doing duplicate efforts? What are we doing that's different? And I just think that in that gratitude and lifting of each other up, we not only become stronger people, we become stronger organizations. And so I love partnerships, and I think some of the best partnerships, not only with this book, but in fundraising, are rooted in trust, in gratitude, and in giving. And seeing where we all fit in that wonderful piece and puzzle together.
Wow, that was marvelously put. That's really terrific and succinct and heartfelt. And I'm going to have to go back a couple of times to listen to your comments, because as you were talking, I'm like, how will I introduce the narrative when I go public with our conversation tomorrow? And boy, you've given me like a half dozen at least solid leads of, it's the community, it's what I hope to give other people as we're connecting for a higher purpose in philanthropy. Amy, this has been such a delightful conversation. I wish we had more time, but I want to respect your bandwidth today. But you've been a delightful guest, and I'm very grateful to have had you on the program.
Oh gosh, Tim, thank you for the opportunity. It was just such a wonderful connection through Sarah, and who, like, the Pruitts are just dear. I mean, literally, she was my first friend in second grade. I'm going to see her again on Saturday for our reunion, our high school reunion.
Oh, awesome.
A dear, their family is so dear. And so just, that's what I love about this power of connection, is that Sarah would say, you need to talk to my friend Tim. Yeah. He has this podcast. I love that. And I think that's what makes our business so powerful, is the relationships we bring and steward along for ourselves and our organizations. Absolutely.
So true. And it's really refreshing and inspiring to have someone like you that I mean, I've known you for an hour, but I get the sense that it's a real conviction. It's a deep rooted sense of your values. And I really appreciate you sharing some of those sentiments today, Amy. It's been awesome. So thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. You can find Amy's conversation on LinkedIn and my website tomorrow. Amy, best of luck with all of your book tour and speaking in the next few weeks.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Bye.
Bye.